Welcome to Investigate Joe Rogan, the podcast many experts are calling the most important of our era. Today I will be investigating episode 1479 of the Joe Rogan Experience with David Pakman. And much of what was said in this episode was sort of vague, but some of it was specific and wrong. This was one of those episodes where Rogan actually does most of the talking, which is always interesting. He starts off with his usual spiel about how there should not be a president because nobody can run everything by themselves and nobody can run an entire civilization. Now, if you have listened to my episode about Tulsi Gabbard, or just listened to that episode, then you know that Tulsi Gabbard came on the show and corrected him and explained how the government works and how the president does not, in fact, single-handedly run America. But here we are. Rogan has completely forgotten what Tulsi Gabbard taught him in that special episode, and he has gone back to his old ways. I'm sure that Tulsi Gabbard is very disappointed in him, as I am myself. They continue to talk about the presidency, and Rogan makes an excuse for Biden's strange and somewhat incoherent rambling style of speech by saying that it may be that he is just under so much pressure as a candidate, and that is what is causing his odd rants. But if this is true, why didn't we see the other Democratic candidates go on weird, fumbling rants? Why weren't the debates just completely comprised of strange word salads? But then later, he also compares Biden to his fighter friends who have brain damage. So it is not totally clear what his opinion on Biden is. They also talk about the mental soundness of the current president, and Rogan says it's safe to assume that Trump is taking some sort of stimulant, as evidenced by the famous picture of Trump eating the taco bowl, which also shows some Sudafed in a drawer. But the drug in the drawer of that image is Sudafed Mucus Relief Day and Night, which you cannot get high off of. If you're on your way to the drugstore right now to pick some up, don't bother. It does not have pseudoephedrine in it, which is the stuff that you can make meth with and get high off of. It has phenylephrine, which doesn't do anything. The idea of Trump attempting to get high off of Sudafed but buying the wrong kind is very funny. But, I mean, this picture just doesn't prove anything and cannot really be taken as evidence of some sort of drug problem. Later, Rogan wonders if the BP oil spill is still leaking into the ocean. The good news is that it is not. But the bad news is what he's probably thinking of is the Taylor oil spill, which is in fact still leaking into the ocean. It is an ongoing spill. It is thought that it could go on for 100 years. When it happened, they told the Coast Guard that it wasn't that bad, and they sort of fooled them. But then Associated Press actually looked into it and discovered that it was way, way worse than the company said it was. And then after that, it did get patched up somewhat, but a complete stop to the leak has not happened yet. The company said it was impossible. This is debated. So Rogan just misremembered it a little bit. Pacman said during this discussion that the BP oil spill was caused because some regulation got removed, and so they didn't need some valve. And this is not what happened. It is thought that the explosion was caused by cost-cutting measures that they took. But they were not exploiting some newfound regulatory loophole or anything. I don't really know where he's getting that from. A topic that comes up in many an episode, Rogan says that most people should supplement with vitamins and pills and things. But Harvard Medical says, quote, even though supplements are popular, there is limited evidence that they offer any significant health benefits. So Rogan is wrong about this. Really, the default should be that you don't need them, unless you have some sort of specific problem. Like you never go outside and get any sun because you spend all your time watching Joe Rogan videos. In which case, you could really benefit from vitamin D pills because you probably have a vitamin D deficiency. But the average person does not need to take supplements. It's worth noting that Rogan says all of this while wearing an On It shirt, but I have said all that needs to be said about On It in my special investigations on On It. They spend much of the episode discussing Twitter, and they wonder how much Twitter might be worth, the company. And Pacman suggests that it could be worth $300 billion. Now, estimates vary, but the highest you will see is about $20 billion. No, it is not worth $300 billion. But what does this say about Pacman, really? That his guess was $300 billion? Well, I think it can be explained just by thinking about who is Pacman? Like, who is this guy? Well, he's basically a professional, liberal. And he probably has to spend, a lot of time on Twitter to stay up to date with, the latest talking points. So he probably has to spend, a few hours every day on Twitter. He lives in, the Twitter-verse. So if you spend all this time on something, it makes sense that you would overestimate its, size and influence. Rogan also says that he does not understand how Twitter makes money. And Pacman just tells him it's ads. How did you not know that? Maybe Rogan has ad block, so he doesn't know Twitter has ads. I don't know. Rogan brings up something in this episode that he has brought up in many a previous episode, which is this idea that the CIA created the term conspiracy theory to discredit people who were questioning the official JFK story. But this is not true. There is no evidence for this conspiracy theory that the CIA created the term conspiracy theory. The term already existed way before JFK. You can see it being used all the way back in the 1800s. But the idea is that the CIA sort of hijacked the term and made it into a pejorative. And the supposed evidence for this is a CIA document called Concerning Criticism of the Warren Report, which discusses how some people do not believe the JFK story. And it became available to the public via the Freedom of Information Act. It was never meant to be read by anyone other than CIA. It mentions the term conspiracy theory once in this sentence. Quote, conspiracy theories have frequently thrown suspicion on our organization. For example, by falsely alleging that Lee Harvey Oswald worked for us. There is nothing in the paper that talks about trying to promote the term or label people who disagree with them as conspiracy theorists or trying to make the term widespread or something. The paper is just them, noting that there are people who think they're lying and trying to trick the public. But wasn't it sort of inevitable that there would be a conspiracy theory about the very term conspiracy theory? I'm sure there's probably others that I don't even know about. Towards the end of the episode, Rogan has an exchange with Pakman that I found very funny. And it reminded me of the scene in SpongeBob where they're trying to teach that supervillain, Man Ray, to be a good guy, and Patrick drops his wallet, but he won't take it back. You know the scene I'm talking about. So Pacman, he tries to get Rogan to vote for Biden. And so he asks, you wanted Bernie to win, right? Right. And Biden is more similar to Bernie than Trump is, right? Right. So you'll vote for Biden then, right? Well, I don't know, Pac-Man. I'm very cynical. I don't know who I'm going to vote for. I really don't know. We'll have to see. I found that to be really funny. Pac-Man put in a good effort, but Rogan cannot be easily convinced with this sort of logic. Now, the most important thing to come out of this episode of JRE is Rogan confirms that he had a long phone conversation with Alex Jones where they talked about how he moved to Spotify. In my mind, this means it is possible that Alex Jones could come on the show a third time. This would be big. I sincerely hope that this happens. But until that happens, I'm not sure what the next episode I'll investigate will be. Nothing obvious stands out to me as of my releasing this. If you have any suggestions as to which episodes should be investigated, you can email me or you can message me on Twitter. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends. Don't let them live in ignorance about Joe Rogan.